keeping that theme of how important it is to harness the benefits of the change and that energy, that motivation, Erica Farmer will now join us. She's co-founder and business director at Quantum Rise. She's got over 20 years of corporate experience designing and delivering high-impact learning and development in organizations as varied as LV, British Gas, Specsavers, Virgin, all these companies I've got shares in, so thanks very much. Through my pension fund, through my pension fund. She's a digital learning specialist and sits on various apprenticeship provider boards to advise on the impact, strategy, and future-proofing of learning provision. A strong link with what Christine's been talking about. But she also brings a more humanistic elements to these learning interventions, you know, that relate to things like coaching, mental resilience, and toughness and confidence building. And she's very passionate about providing opportunities to others in business, specifically driving digital innovation and thought leadership to learning and training organizations, enabling them to revolutionize the design and delivery of learning and innovate the learner journey. So she's going to be looking at, I think, innovative learning, but in that digital space that we're all now inhabiting. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here. And Christine says, well, how do I follow that? Then I've got, how do I follow that and that? So, but thank you very much for the team for inviting me here today. So yeah, I'm really passionate in exactly everything that's just been talked about so far. After 20 years corporate learning and development experience, but also a lifetime of learning. At school, I wasn't particularly an academic. I did have the luxury of going to a grammar school in East Devon, but my thing was sport. And what came with that was an element of coaching and instruction and working with people to get the best out of them. And I remember my maths classes, and I absolutely hated them. And I was in the bottom set. I was okay at English, but it just wasn't a thing for me. And in my head, I was thinking, well, I don't need to know Pythagoras theorem and algebra and all of these things. I just want to go and play sport. I want to be a PE teacher, and I want to go and do a sports degree at the University of Gloucestershire. And very quickly I learned that I needed maths for the trajectory of a long jumper, or how hard to kick a football, or sports psychology. So it's amazing how these things come back to you without even realizing sometimes. So that was just a reflection of the conversations that we've had so far today. So as I've talked about, my name is Erica Farmer. I'm from a company called Quantum Rise Talent Group. We work particularly with apprenticeship training providers, colleges, universities and corporate learning and development to think about the difference in mindset when it comes to online learning and development, because it is a different mindset and a different skill set. And the reason behind that is psychologically, the brain learns differently in a different space. And the psychology of how we learn is really important in this space, because we need to understand why that is and what that means. So let's take a step back. I'd like you to answer the question that comes on the screen right now. It's from the World Economic Forum's Future of Job and Skills report, I think the 2020 version. And I was amazed when I read this for the first time. I did deliver this to some university folk on Friday, and they got it straight away, actually. So if there's anyone from universities in it, you'll probably get this. But just have a think about, according to the World Economic Forum, what percentage of 5 to 11-year-olds who are in school right now will go into a job that doesn't even exist yet? Maybe have a chat next to the person next to you, write down a figure. If you were a betting person, where would you put your money? 5 to 11-year-olds. Okay, let me bring you back in. Let me bring you back in. I should do James's clapping trick, I think, here. If I can just bring you back in. So if you decided under 30%, put your hand up. Sorry? Under 30%, sorry. Yeah, under 30%, put your hand up. Okay. Under 40%, put your hand up. 50%, put your hand up. 60% put your hand up. Anything more? Yeah, okay, interestingly, 65%. So well done, anybody who got around there. So 65%. So what we need to think about is not just how we equip the majority of the children who are in schools now, but also how do we leapfrog and accelerate when it comes to learning provision and enabling people to get into those jobs that don't even exist yet, whether that's robotics, artificial intelligence, coding, critical thinking, whatever that might be. The education that we're delivering right now has to be in the right space. And that's content, but more importantly, that's how we deliver it and how we design our learning. So we're maximizing that psychological impact of how the brain learns best online. So this is what the World Economic Forum said. Whilst much has been said about the need to reform basic education, it's simply not possible to weather the current technological revolution by waiting for the next generation workforce just to turn up and be better prepared. We can't just rely on Generation Alpha to rock up using an iPhone, looking at YouTube when they want to learn something, because that's what's already happening. Okay, that's where we are already. This is what we say at Quantum Rise, setting everybody up with the hardware and software to work from home and continue to deliver training was only the start of this journey. More support, development and critical thinking is needed in this space. So hands up if you're delivering remote teaching or online learning at the moment. About half the room. Hands up if you have, particularly during the pandemic. Again, the majority of you. And geez, that kind of emergency response to getting online wasn't that stressful for everybody? Yeah, absolutely. But take the learns as wins, because there's a lot further we can go. There's a lot more we can do. And that's fantastic because it gives us that opportunity and that mindset that Christine was talking about earlier. A shift has happened and needs to happen going forwards. And that's where we are right now. And this is super exciting. So what I want you to do is just grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, score yourself from 0 to 1 being, you know, we've got a lot to learn with our remote teaching right now, our online learning. We're kind of on Zoom, we're on Teams, but we know we've got a lot to do. Right through to 10 being we're smashing it out of the park. And what I'd like you to do is just give yourself a score of where you are right now. And I'll just give you kind of 30 seconds to do that. 0 being, 10 being smashed out the park. Okay, let me bring you back in. Let me bring you back in. Let me bring you back in now. Okay, so just a bit of reflection there to think about where you are right now. And it's okay if you're a 0 and it's okay if you're a 10 and anything in between. If anyone's coming to the workshop later, I'll ask you to do the same exercise. But constantly think about what does it take to get to a 6? What does it take to get to a 7? What does it take to get to an 8? And actually, when we get to an 8, the bar for the 8 might be a lot further forward because of new technical innovation. And we need to think about where our mindset is regarding this during this year. Because yes, we learned a lot during the pandemic 2021, but now is the time to step forwards and step up. Now is the time to make sure that we're designing and delivering our online learning, our remote teaching, our virtual learning, so it is engaging and it's fun and there's lots of activities. But not just that, it enables people to move the new knowledge from their working mindset into the long-term memory. That means people are more likely to go to apply what they've learned in the workplace, and that's what we're all about, right? So, outdated methodologies, a bit of bingo here for you. If there's any of these that you're using at the moment, this is where the critical thinking comes in. The words that we hear about quite a lot in learning technology, things like gamification, different to gaming, But you might have platforms and systems where they might get a little award or a certificate. You might have a leaderboard, quite out of date. If it's all classroom based, people are sat in classrooms for the majority of their learning. We know that's got an impact on inclusivity and accessibility. I remember delivering training, and you'd always get about a third of the class have to leave to go and do the school run. Why did we think that was acceptable at the time? When you think about innovative online learning now, can be flexible in short bites, bite-sized learning that meets the needs of people, and they can self-access when they want. Building big programmatic responses to a need, very out of date. Stuff that's purely conversational. Again, how are we enabling people to move that from the short-term to the long-term memory if they're not doing something with it? You have to mentally digest something, particularly in the online space. So, we see a lot of online learning where the tutor and the trainers will have some conversations on a session, and maybe they'll put them into breakout rooms, which is great, but that's pretty much as far as it gets. When we know actually that's about 20% of the tools and technology that are available to design and deliver online. Chapter-based e-learning, you all know it, that's stuff that you have to read and click and then answer a quiz at the end of it. Normally around compliance learning, that kind of stuff. We know it's boring. I can see the smiles around the room already. Yeah, Erica, we know exactly what you're talking about. And stuff that's real content heavy, theory heavy stuff, that's where people can go away and learn and read if they're those kind of people. But you're just going to switch people off if that's where we are. So modern learning isn't just about being online. Modern learning is around the pedagogy of online learning and how the brain thinks best and learns best. So, a lot of you will know something around cognitive overload. We've got to consider that in the online space. If we're throwing too much information at people, they're not going to be able to remember it or do anything with it. It's like pouring a beer and keep pouring and pouring, and the beer is flowing out the glass, and you're thinking, oh God, no, I'm paying for that beer. It just will keep flowing out of the glass and it won't stay in the glass. So we need to think about what that means. Also, things like the picture superiority effect. You would have noticed in all the slides that have been presented so far that they don't have a lot of text and they're picture and video based. There's a reason for that, because these images anchor into our minds. And if we're sat looking at screens all day, we need to consider the amount of information that we're anchoring to people and helping them learn. So we're talking about giving opportunities for digital optimization. And digitalization and digital transformation, by the way, are two different things. So digitalization is about, okay, I've got something that I do handwritten and I'm going to start doing that on Word, and I'm going to type it in Word. And actually, I do a lot of curriculum review, and I see a lot of workbooks, and I see a lot of learning materials that are quite boring in that space. There's so many more innovative things we can do. Digital transformation is coming from a place where everything is going to be empowering and accessible and interactive and help people to learn in the digital space. There's a massive difference between the two. And it's all about engagement and interaction. It's all about getting that person really thinking about, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to my role? How do I need to consider this in what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis? What are the questions I need to ask? How do I need to apply that? And actually, what's the accountability, support and challenge that James was talking about earlier that means that I'm actually going to interact and do something with it? Because we all hate those online sessions, right? Where everybody has the cameras off and nobody interacts. Our online sessions are definitely not like that. You need to think about leapfrogging. I've talked about this already. So it's all one thing keeping up with where we are from a learning and development perspective, but actually you're already 2 years behind. Okay, so we need to think about the tools and technologies that are available to you for whether it's maths, English, and particular digital skills that are going to become your plan A. Because tech and digital is not plan B, C, D, or E. It should be your plan A. This is where your learners and your employers and your clients' expectations are going to be. I've worked with a lot of learning and development functions. I've been in a lot of learning and development functions, and they want to be seeing innovation from partners, and your learners are going to be wanting to expect that, because they're going to be self-curating their own learning when it comes to Web 3.0 and the metaverse that we're starting to think about. So it's about exploring the art of the possible. If you're thinking that workbooks and PDFs and things like that are innovative, then come and have a conversation with me. So principles of future-proofing, just some food for thought that we talked about. We've already talked about digitization and digital transformation. Learning in the flow of work. So how are you designing your maths and English curriculum so it is fully embedded into everything your learner is doing on a day-to-day basis, and it's fully embedded into curricula? And I know we talk about this a lot as a sector. I don't really see it a lot as a sector, particularly on some of the higher level apprenticeships as well. I'm reviewing coaching level 5 for a provider at the moment, and they're saying to me, I've got no idea how to integrate mathematics into that. So interesting conversations to have, and there's no magic bullet for this, but this is about challenging ourselves and thinking about that. On-demand consumption, right? You're going to say to me, oh, but you've got to do your 20% off the job in learning hours and working hours. That's not what the expectation is of learners going to be going forwards. Long gone are the days of coming into a classroom, putting your phone away and not interacting. Again, some of the workshops later, you'll be actively engaging in technology and your phones. Leapfrog and Accelerate, we've talked about. Hybrid workplace, we've heard a lot about hybrids. Your clients and your learners, your employers that you're working with are looking at decision-making matrices where they make the decision on where they work, how they work, and what does that mean. Out of hours, for example, around the school run, in different locations, different countries, we need to be thinking about this stuff. And sustainability is probably going to be the biggest tidal wave that starts to hit you in the next couple of years. So people, planet, profit. That's where organisation and industry is going to start to go. And as we know, driving around the country, seeing different learners in the car all the time, one-to-one sessions, isn't going to help things like carbon emission. And actually, when your organisations start tendering for big contracts, and I'm already in this space, contracts and tenders ask for, what are you doing around climate change? What are you doing around carbon emissions? How are you delivering learning in a sustainable and changeable way? And this is exactly what we're talking about here. It's being available anywhere to deliver learning anywhere in any way. And I know that's a big ask, but we've got Web 3.0 coming. We've got, Web 1.1, if you don't know this, was we went to the internet in the 90s and we had that dial-up phone thing that we heard, right? AOL and that stuff. Still got an AOL email address, actually. And we went there for information, right? We wanted, this is, I can get Britannica, all that kind of stuff on there. Web 2.0 was Facebook and Silicon Valley and Twitter and LinkedIn, and platforms that were controlled by these organizations. Web 3.0 is going to open everything up from a platform content perspective, where learners are going to curate their own content, where learners are going to want to meet in the metaverse in regards to having a character where they turn up and have meetings. This is already happening. Bill Gates only yesterday talked about having meetings in the metaverse as a common thing within the next 3 years. It's that close on our doorsteps. This is what we mean around accelerate and leapfrog rather than catch up. Access to anything, information available, content on the blockchain. You might have heard of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, this kind of stuff. This is what your learners are going to be engaging with, and this is the kind of stuff we need to start thinking about. And the pace and demand will be personalized and based on what your learners need, not when you can deliver. But the good news is we really need to understand what EdTech can bring and the commercial value of this. And if you start thinking ahead and understand what the ability of technology gives you, there is a bottom line to be had there. We're all in business, let's not forget that. But we need to think about our creative, interactive experiential learning experiences and opportunities, because we are creators of opportunities and experiences. We're not learning deliverers and practitioners. This is the shift that needs to happen. So my challenge to you is to bring everything together this year, reflect on what the last 2 years have had, put that aside and start to think about how you're going to accelerate and leapfrog going forwards. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.